Hey, Work Positive Nation, how important would you say is the relationship between leadership resilience and work performance? Extremely important, right? My guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast wrote The Resilience Plan, a strategic approach to optimizing your work performance and mental health. It's named a top 5 book to read by Inc. and Forbes. It's all about this vital relationship and how your work culture grows people and profits through leadership resilience. Invite your leader to come and join you, to lean in, listen up, and love your work with you on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast.
Welcome to the Work Positive Podcast with your host, executive coach, and culture architect, Dr. Joey Fawcett. Discover strategies and tactics that work positive as Dr. Joey talks with industry leaders who create a positive work culture that attracts top talent and reduces team turnover. Discover how you can create a work positive culture that increases productivity and profits. Here's your host, Dr. Joey.
Work Positive Nation, wow, you're in for a treat today. This is the Dr. MH. Dr. MH, welcome to the Work Positive Podcast.
Dr. Joey, a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we got like Doctor going on here.
Yes, we do.
Now I've got a song from my childhood running through my head called The Doctor Woke Him Up, said, Doctor. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, baby boomer music is something else. Anyway, go to YouTube and look it up. Dr. MH has written this amazing book. Put it on your list. Go right now. It's in my Kindle. Get yourself a paperback copy, whatever you need to do. The Resilience Plan. In fact, we're going to talk more later about the resilienceplan.com and what's there, some goodies that you can get. So let's talk about resilience, Dr. MH. How did you come to focus your culture research on resilience?
Mm-hmm. It's the people I was working with. Because of my combination of psychology and business background, I ended up working with a lot of professionals and leaders who are getting so much done, being so resourceful, fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And so the approach that their mindset was already, not using this word necessarily, but talking about how can we be even better at what we do? How can we go through all the demands, the adversity at times, and get out of this even stronger, grow from this? And as I was listening to them and seeing the research over here, so much of which was not in their hands, and a desire to implement more of it, that's how I got to focusing on resilience and then bringing the resilience and the strategy piece together.
So it was observation and then inspiration, it sounds like, for you, because you're just
Yes.
amazing. Now, you just reminded me of Dr. Sean Akers' book, The Happiness Advantage, where he talks about bouncing forward from these times of adversity. You know, the reaction and response to adversity we see in so many places today, work being one of them, is just all over the map. Mindset makes such a key difference. What did you learn about how we respond to adversity and succeed?
Yeah, it's well, from all of my training in psychology, of course, there was
Right.
this strong focus in my training on when it's problematic and how our thinking sometimes will contribute to making things even more challenging and ways we can make it even better and all this. But it was more from a problem type of perspective. And then, of course, as we know, there's been the existence of positive psychology that came and complemented that conversation so well and spoke a language, again, that was much more aligned with what highly effective, highly resourceful professionals and leaders already think. And so that seemed to just correspond really well. But then, even if we're here doing so much and being so effective at so many things,
Yep.
we're all still human. And at times the thinking is not going to be helpful, right? Same.
Yeah.
And so, but let's use the tools. Those same tools can be useful for us here. Let's make sure we use them.
Oh, so tell me about some of these tools, please.
Well, so there are a number of areas, and if sometimes we will want to first work on our thinking, our mindset, and all that. And that is important. But I sometimes will remind everyone, including myself, is that the behavioral aspect, like the choices we're making in what some people would call just our lifestyle,
Hmm.
sometimes people tend to disregard them. And we know what these things are. We've heard them so much in the pandemic phase. Things like exercise, including cardio, strength training, and meditative type activity, the
Hmm.
nutrition, the
Hmm.
sleep, the
Hmm.
time in relationships that we value. So these four things, it's almost sometimes like people are saying, give me something else, MH. We know these things. And then I say, yes, okay, well, tell me in the past 2 weeks, how often have you paid attention to these
What?
four?
You want to hold them accountable?
Because the reality, and that's what I tell them, if resilience was a mathematical equation, these four variables would account for most of the variance.
Yes.
So it's not because they look simple that number one, they are simple to implement. They are not. And it's also not because they look simple that they're not powerful. They actually are. If I seriously could do magic on everyone and have only one wish, I would pull the four together as one wish. And that would be fantastic. It would change world mental health population. Seriously, it would.
Definitely, definitely. So it's not that we don't intellectually understand what to
Mm.
do. It's a matter of translating it from our head into our gut, where all of our real decisions are made about our
And to the
behavior,
schedule.
right? Into the schedule. Yeah. So how it sounds like that's one of the keys to resilience then is moving from intellectual assent to executing it daily. What are some of the keys that you found in the resilience plan?
That's it. That's exactly, actually, this is exactly where the resilience plan comes in.
Hmm.
Because what I was hearing is, yes, MH, okay, yes, we would love to have all these things into our lives. We trust the research, we believe you, and we cannot seem to be able to make it happen. Like
Mm,
we're too busy, too full, too everything. It's just not happening.
mm.
And so that's when, and they would blame themselves or say, let's try something else. And so that's when I would say, okay, wait, if you and I were starting a business and we had this great new idea, would we just have this great idea and launch it? Or would we have this great idea and say, okay, who else is offering anything close to this? How much are they charging for it? Who is buying it? What
Mm,
forces might impact the interest for this in the future?
mm,
We would do all this. This is strategy. This is looking at the context and what's influencing this. So let's do the same for our resilience. Let's pause and say things like, and I made it concise and doable in the book because I do know people are busy.
yeah.
Said, okay, first, if we're going to have a good plan for each of us, for you, Dr. Joy,
Yep.
we're going to need to start with your values. Yours are different from mine. I think we actually share a couple, but they're
More than a
still,
couple.
right?
Yeah.
They're different. And so,
Uh-huh.
but for each of us, we want to first look at, okay, what is most important for me in life? Because we're not going to be able to do everything. We're going to need to make choices.
Strategic.
And and back to even the link you were making earlier with happiness, that's also going to be a key component of our happiness, connecting with these values and making a plan that involves them. Then we're going to, and I can go in more details, but look at the sources of supply we have in our life right now, given how it's set up. Reality, not a wish, the reality.
Mm,
Sources of demands, and again, not minimizing here, being very real.
yeah.
Looking at our overall context and the various forces there so that we can create a plan that is actually doable, realistic. Once people have done this work, they don't leave with a big plan or a big list that they don't even know where to start and cannot touch. No, no, no. They start with a plan that actually it's very easy. They do it. And 3 months later, it's done. And they're able to move to their next version. The same way in business, we would evolve a strategy. Same
Mm.
thing.
Yeah. Hope is not a strategy.
No.
Hope is important, but it's not a
Mm?
strategy. So I love the way, because as you were talking, the word realistic was going through my brain, and you dropped that word. So we make it realistic. In terms of putting together our resilience plan and we want to make it realistic, What are some of the key ways in which we make the steps to doing what we say we want to do?
I know. We get to realistic actions here if in the planning process we've given that realistic eye to our situation. What often really highly effective professionals and leaders do is we overestimate the energy, the sources of supply we have, and we underestimate the demands we're facing. So I'll
Mm,
ask, what kinds of demands are you facing? People will give me one or two things that are tough at work these days. And it's only when I stay there a bit longer and I say, okay, what else is going on in your personal life? They'll name a couple of things. Then we'll go back to work. Okay, well, give me more. What is that it? Like, what else is going on? Oh, well, I also have this colleague who's needing to be off work for a period of time. I've picked that up. Okay. And then I have this great promotion that's coming, really exciting, but that's going to be a lot of change. Okay. And then on a personal side, oh, well, I have this friend whose relationship has ended, so I'm supporting them.
mm,
Okay. And we want to do these things. We're happy to do them,
mhm,
but they are demands, right?
mhm.
So, but until we have that realistic perspective, we think we're fine. So therefore, there's nothing that needs to change.
Yeah, because we're underestimating the demands
Mm,
that are around us at work and in our personal lives, and we're overestimating the amount of energy. I will say that's one of the things, and I'm not that old, but that's one of the things as I've become more mature, I've begun to understand more is the strategic use of resources, and that's my time, my energy, and my attention. Also, as a part of that, the seasons of life. Like right now, for me, it's very easy for me to get up at 5:30 in the morning and to do my meditations and focus and ground myself for the day. Then go for a 2 mile walk outdoors. It doesn't matter what the weather is. I'm going to be outdoors simply because that renews and restores my own spirit. However, when our two daughters were at home, it was a different game on during my morning ritual. So I worked out in the afternoon and got outdoors in the afternoons when they were off with their friends doing things. So it sounds to me like you help facilitate or literally midwife the resilience plan by helping people identify the demands on their lives at that particular moment in that season of life, and then a realistic expectation of how much energy you've got and where you'll strategically spend it.
yes, yes. And season of life is one of the uh, ways in which sometimes our context is changing, but
Mm,
sometimes within the same season, and you're right, the seasons will, for most people, make, a difference in the context.
mm,
And then even within the same season, things change. Let's say you have visitors over the next few months in December.
mm,
House is full of people. Or together as a family, or you and your partner, whoever, you're going on a vacation. Just that. Now you're in a different context. There isn't
mm,
a quiet room to meditate. And no, you can't just go out the door in the particular place you are. So it has changed the context.
mm,
And so that's paying attention to what is the actual context around me and what is possible in this context. And so for some people, even in one phase, they'll have different versions of their plan.
mm,
Say, for example, if someone travels often for work, then there's probably version when I'm in my usual environment and the
mhm,
version when I'm traveling, where the walk, instead of being that 2 mile meditative walk outside, it's going from gate to gate in LAX. Okay, well, it's a walk,
mhm. Which
you
is
know,
anything but quiet, right? Yeah.
right? But
So
it's something.
adaptability, yeah, I'm still getting the steps in, right? So adaptability is one of the keys to resilience, and that adaptability grows out of a context definition.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. And we want to pay attention. Otherwise, it's interesting how in so many other areas of life, we will tend to say, oh, what are the numbers? What are the data? What do we know? Right. Whereas for this, for our own resilience planning, we sometimes will use very old data. We'll say, oh, yeah, when I was whatever, 30 or 20, this is how I used to do things.
Uh-huh.
And it was fine. And now I'm here in this different moment. And I'm still applying these data over there that actually are not relevant anymore.
No, no longer
Yeah.
applicable, right? But in
Mhm.
my mind, I go back to I'm 17, so I should be able to run those 2 miles up and down the mountain here. Walking is much easier. Yeah, I love it. Dr. MH is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive podcast. So let's apply these concepts from the resilience plan that we're talking about to the creation of a positive work culture in some hallmark kinds of ways. Let's say I'm facilitating resilience planning on the part of our culture, and I'm seeking to attract top talent. Now, notice attraction instead of recruitment. I'm not trying to sell somebody on coming to work with our company. We've established the resilience plan as a part of our positive work culture. So, how do I begin to talk about that with top talent in a way to help them understand what we've got going on and to attract them to come and join our team?
Yes. Love that approach. Number one, I think it's so healthy and
Mm,
will likely lead to attracting even more of the right people, the best fit. So
yes,
one of the things, I mean, number one, I would say we're talking about how much we value resilience here, how we invest in it, and that's something that is on the agenda for growth and development of individuals, but also all of us as a team. And that's something that for many will resonate because growth and development is one of the psychological healthy factors that we want in a workplace. So that's one piece. The other piece that you might do is you might share with individuals interested in joining your team the kinds of challenges you face,
mm,
the kinds of things that will require even more
resilience.
resilience from
Yeah,
us as teams and as individuals. And what's good there is that what you're providing, in effect, is a realistic perspective on how this workplace looks like, not just the positives and the wonderful Dr. Joy things. Yes
right.
to that. And we also have challenges. So let's talk about this. It allows for that realistic perspective. It may also help people self-select out if they say, well, huh, God, I thought it was like this. And as I'm hearing more,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't look like it's a fit for me, which is great. Not everywhere is going to be a fit for everyone. And so that would be my the second way we could apply a resilience lens to that part of the process.
Mm. And I love the authenticity that comes from that transparency about the challenges and the adversity. That moves me from trying to sell somebody on coming to work here. Oh, it's nirvana. Please come to work. It's positive all the time. To no, there's some seasons in our year when, it could be the fourth quarter, it could be first quarter, it could be whenever during the year when it's crunch time, it's go time, and we're really having to work hard here. So you just need to know that coming in, and here's what we're doing. And so we'll
Yes,
require resilience at that time. I love
I
that.
know. I did that exactly that. Do I have time for a quick story, Dr.
Yeah.
Joey?
Yeah,
I
sure.
did exactly that many, many years ago. My first management role
Uh-huh.
was in a call center. And it was a call center of an employee and family assistance program.
Okay.
So, of course, sometimes callers would call fairly distressed, right? So it is, and
Fairly.
any call center operation is very demanding.
Mm,
And the
very.
people who wanted to join the team were mostly people with bachelor degrees in psychology, loving people, interested in,
Mm, I love it.
fabulous. But some of them would join, they would get trained and everything, and then would leave.
Mm,
So at some point, I changed that process. And early in the conversations, we did a role play where this was now many years ago, we would both turn around and I would pretend to be a client calling only crying and seeing how the other person reacted. We had told them in advance, you're not trained, we understand, just do your best, basically, right? But this was allowing half of them to say, this is so great, I want to be trained, this is what I want to do. And others saying, did not realize people would call that way. Don't want to do that. Thank you so much. I'm out.
Yeah,
Changed everything.
right. Or you could have just as easily role played an upset customer, right? Who's calling you everything but your mother's child. And right. And
I know I went to the heart of it. So,
yeah, that's right, right. Well, I love it. I love it because that gives us a very authentic, transparent way of talking about here are the situations in which you're going to need to be resilient, and here are the ways we help you grow your resilience.
that's right.
So let's say that we attract that person, the fit is there, right person in the right seat on the right bus. They're with us, they're on our team. How do we keep them on our team? The ones we want to stay on our team, anyway.
Yes. Well, and sometimes we want to even to learn this, to see who's the best fit, and how can we grow. We need to nourish that relationship to see where it goes, just like any other relationship, really. So once they're on the team, we probably want to continue to invest in them as individuals, nourish their growth and development and what they're interested in, engage them in decisions and all this. But specifically from a team resilience perspective, having even the word resilience on our agenda on a regular basis does not need to be every weekly meeting, but at least once a month, maybe, where we're talking about, we're looking ahead. We're saying, okay, knowing what we know about the cycle of our work, the year, the times of year, whatever we know, when is the next likely moment where we will all feel that pressure even more? And if we don't know, because it's always a surprise, and given our type of work, fine, we identify that it is always a surprise. Okay. And how can we plan now for either that moment that we know or the surprise moment? And remarkably, sometimes we will, unless we deliberately put it on the agenda, we will not talk about it because we're busy, we're doing the things, moving on. If we do put it on the agenda, and it is not like a 5-hour conversation, it can be fairly brief, but and sometimes I'm saying this actually a bit seriously. People tend to think it's such a big deal, we don't have time for this.
Yeah.
It can be 15 minutes where all we're saying is, let's all identify what are the things, and is there any action we can take now to help us buffer, prepare for it, get a few things done in advance, whatever the case may be. And that increases a sense of control from everyone and will allow the operation itself to be more resilient.
I love it. Just sometimes having someone, a leader, acknowledge, hey, we're going to be coming up into our busy season. Here's some things we observed in the past that tend to happen in this season. Just having someone acknowledge that in a position of authority says, okay, and then to be able to offer, here's some of the things we found in the past that help you get through that, prepare in this way, expect this, do these things. That just allows me to set some expectations, and that in itself must increase resilience.
Yes, it would. And I would also say, as leaders, sometimes we don't know. Or we think we know. We always think we know, obviously. But
yes, we do.
so let me just say that.
Yep.
So I would say, let's force ourselves to still ask the question. Now, from my perspective, from the time we've been doing this, it looks like this is the period. We probably want to prepare for that period of time. Great. As a team, what do you see? What do you see that I'm not seeing, that we have not talked about yet? What angle are we missing? We sometimes need to actually ask this for it to emerge, right? So I would use both perspectives.
Just opening up the topic, saying, here's what we've seen, and then what do you see? That collaborative effect there really empowers them to embrace and to take autonomy around the resilience plan necessary for that. So what are some of the challenges that you see and experience with companies that are seeking to implement a resilience plan?
It's, I think the human aspect for all of us is resistance. Even when we know we want the change, we know how necessary it is, we know the benefits, everything else. It's that first and excuse me, very human reaction to first say, no, don't want to do this. And
yes.
Right.
Push
and
back
so
on it. Yeah. Why do we need to do that?
Right. It's the devil we know already, whatever it is.
Yeah, the devil we
Lots
know is
of
better than the one we don't know. Yeah. So it's that whole resistance to change generally as humans.
It is, and it's in part why I've made the actions in the resilience plan so simple, so doable. It's almost hard to resist them, even if you want to, because it's very easy. And so because it's that easy, and also because I know my audience, I know how busy they are,
Yeah.
I know the types of things they'll tell me to resist. And so I've responded to a number of
You
those to make it a bit
anticipate the
easier.
resistance.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So let's say I begin, then what are some of the challenges that I'm going to face in terms of making the resilience plan a part of my positive work culture?
It will depend, of course, on the context, right?
Sure.
That's
Sure.
the essence of this. I would say one of the things that sometimes happens, and that when you implement your own resilience plan, it means you will do and say some things differently from before, obviously.
Mhm.
And that will be true at work. It will also be true in your personal life because you're the same Dr. Joey, you're the same person, right? It's all of us. So you will sound different in some ways. And
Mm.
so sometimes communicating it in advance to people, saying, trying something different.
Ah,
Then what, because otherwise people contribute to that resistance. So we resist, but let's say we get over it and now we do things different. People around us will also be looking for the old Dr. Joey,
mhm.
the usual way. And so if you've told them in advance, I'm trying something different, let me just go with this. I need to try things. I may succeed. I may sometimes fail. I may not sometimes remember, but this is where I'm going.
Mm.
Then that communication can help with this as well. So something to consider.
Yeah, definitely something to consider because that does several things for me. First of all, it creates some accountability
Hmm.
okay, because I'm not just making the contract with myself. Me, myself, and I make contracts all the time, but we're expanding beyond my personal
Right?
trio to say, hey, Dr. MH, I'm going to be doing this differently. I just want you to know here's a heads up, and I'm going to be trying this to see what the effect is over the next 21 days. So I love that that creates some accountability, but also Dr. MH, it must tamp down some of that resistance because people have learned how to interact with me or with you. And so they know when they do this, they're going to get that, right? Because we're all pretty predictable. But now something's going to change. So if I announce that resilience plan is going into effect and my behavior is going to be different in these specific ways, it's got to tamp down some of their resistance to it
Hmm.
because they've been prepped, right?
Yes. Yes. It will decrease that resistance. And it also is interesting because um sorry, I just had two ideas at the same time, and I lost one of them.
You're
So
you're mine too.
but wait, we're talking about that resistance. Sorry, it escaped my mind. It will come
That's
back.
that's okay. We'll have Annalisa edit that right out. We were talking about tamping down the resistance, and when I announce it, then
Oh, okay, I know. Yes.
go ahead.
So when we're doing this, yes, it will decrease that resistance from other people as well. But here's the other piece that this does. You're now, like, to use your word from earlier, we are now transparently
Mm,
sharing a change process
mm,
where I am transparently sharing some vulnerability, right? I'm sharing that I'm trying something. It may work, it may not work, and I'm
yeah.
bringing that up. It's on the table, which all supports a culture of even more trust, which will have so many benefits. In effect, what I'm also saying is increasing the overall psychological safety here in this team between all of us, because I'm acknowledging that that thing that I'm trying hopefully will succeed, but could also not work. It may fail. And I'm still trying it. So failing is
Mm,
fine, making errors is fine because we're growing and learning from it. And
mm.
all this, right, contributes to a culture where, yeah, it's okay to do it that way here. We support it, we support each other, and we're growing.
Yeah, both personally and as a company, we're growing
Yes.
and developing. I love that. Or as I like to talk about in Work Positive Nation, we grow people and profits because there's a direct relationship between those two. When we focus on growing people, then we grow the profits as well. Dr.
Mm.
MH is my guest on this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. We've been talking about her book, The Resilience Plan. And so if you look in the show notes or if you want to go right now, theresilienceplan.com is a website you want to go to. When we go there, Dr. MH, what are we going to find?
Well, you'll find a number of things some blog posts and various pieces of information about my work, of course. But one of the things that is, I think, interesting for all of us in this conversation, I've put on the website free resources that are their worksheets, basically, that you can use with or without the book. They are self-explanatory. They walk you through the process of getting to the place where you have what you need to create your strategic resilience plan. So they're there. So it's free. It's my gift to you and your audience. So really invite people to go and check them out.
Take advantage of that. I mean, they're your keys to the resilience kingdom right there at theresilienceplan.com, right? Yeah, I love it. And also in the show notes, there's a link to the book where you can go directly over to Amazon and buy your copy. So it'd be great. Go to the resilienceplan.com website, look at those free resources. That way you try before you buy the book and spend your time reading that. You'll love these free resources so much that you'll go right to Amazon. We put it all right there, easy peasy for you right in the show notes. And we also have Dr. MH's LinkedIn profile URL. So you can just click on that and you can go there and you send her a message, tell her your story of resilience, and invite her to come and be a part of what is happening in your company culture to make it positive. So Dr. MH, Work Positive Nation always wants to know from my guest. And so we're all on the edge of our seats waiting to hear what you have to say, because I love the behavioral focus of what you do. So we're after one thing. Dr. MH, what's your one thing you would recommend to us in Work Positive Nation to start doing today to create a positive work culture?
So I'm going to go straight to workload. Yes. One of the key factors of psychological health and safety and resilience in teams and organizations. And the action is to sit with the team and ask team members to identify one part of their work that creates even more pressure from a workload perspective. Just one part, not a big level. Oh my God, I have too much to do. Not that. We want specific. We're going granular, because we actually know from research that this is where the gold is. This is where we will find the nuggets, the short pieces, the part of a process that no one does often, but when we do, it's stressful because we're not used to it. And maybe all we need is a more detailed list of things to cover in this area, right? So that's the action. We talk about workload, we identify the one part of the process, and we fix just that.
Yeah, because that's a bite-sized chunk. We can take that off, right? Rather than trying to swallow the whole elephant at once. Thank you so much, Dr. MH. I have absolutely loved this conversation with you. I'm energized by it. I'm ready to go out and do that one thing. In fact, I'm gonna sit with my team and myself, and we're gonna find those one things, because when we release those, certainly more meaning and satisfaction and joy comes into our work. So thank you so much for sharing with Work Positive Nation today.
Oh, Dr. Joy, it was a pleasure for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Work Positive Podcast. Please share this podcast with your friends who are HR and small business leaders so they can do one thing today to create a positive work culture that increases productivity and profits. I'd like to give you a free Work Positive course just for listening. It's called Something to Talk About, and it's transformed the work conversations of so many people all over the world. Get your free copy when you go to workpositive.today/something to talk about, and you can start transforming your conversations today. Remember, it pays to work positive.